and welcome. Today's guest is a creative business strategist with roots in advertising, publicity, and film. Recognized by Forbes magazine as a connector, she is on a mission to change the traditional joint venture and affiliate marketing models by using her vast global network to create business development strategies that elevate profits and amplify social impact through aligned and strategic heart-centered collaborations. She is the co-founder of Link Lab, a joint venture and affiliate management agency that highlights its clients' unique gifts and gets their message out to the masses. She is also the creator of the self-love and self-care community, which teaches people how to love and care for themselves more consciously so they can shine brighter in the world. A bright light herself, welcome Brooke Emery. Now, Brooke, you have had quite a journey in advertising, publicity, and film. So what was the genesis of your drive to create a new model for joint ventures and affiliate marketing? Where did that come from?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I've been a connector since I'm a kid. Before the internet, I'm aging myself. I used to go on vacation and write to all my friends. I'd write postcards. And then when I was in publicity, I didn't know that I was going to start creating strategic alliances, but I'm a very intuitive person. And a lot of times when my clients would throw something my way, I worked for a famed jeweler, Aaron Basha, on Madison Avenue, and they had a desire to work with Godiva chocolate. And then I just happened to know the head of PR who was working on the client for Godiva. So I called her up and I said, let's do something. So we ended up doing an entire campaign together, which was called a joint venture. And we sponsored Brooke Shields' baby shower because they had these beautiful pendants called the baby shoes. And then I got hooked on that versus the PR. I mean, I could use my talents as a connector to make a business. And then I landed in the internet marketing world where I work with personal development speakers, health and wellness authors, as well as conscious entrepreneurs. And I ended up learning that game and how I want to shift the joint venture and affiliate marketing world is through more aligned partnerships where they're creative versus, tit for tat, or I mail for you, you mail for me, but it's not really an energetic match. And these joint ventures not only feel good, but they also make profits.
Amazing. So when did you notice that the old way of joint venturing or affiliating was no longer working? What was that moment?
Well, when I worked on a launch and I got adrenal fatigue and walking pneumonia, I realized that that's not how I want to live my life. And then I was speaking with other clients and they had said they don't want to work that way anymore. The hustle and the tit for tat. There's got to be a better, more creative and aligned way that feels good. Life is short, and I believe an inside out approach is possible, and that other model, I don't want to make it wrong, and it works and it brilliantly for some people. It's just not an energetic match for me and the people I want to represent.
Got it. So you've developed something called a high vibe collaboration. Seems to have stemmed from that, but tell us more about that.
We're putting together a container where conscious women business owners can come together and not only create these creative aligned alliances. We're going to teach, we together combined, we have years and years of experience on how to create joint ventures, but we're going to teach these business owners how to consciously create them in a way that feels good, and also reminding people to manage their energy and do an inside out approach, how to create strategic attraction plans, approaching it from more of a conscious business as opposed to just going out and randomly, throwing tomatoes at the wall, but creating that sisterhood, creating that self-care first, because from that high frequency, just even from the law of attraction and different spiritual principles, when we feel good, that's when we attract good things to ourselves.
Absolutely. Amen to that. Now, you are exceptionally well connected with a vast global network of heart centered change makers. So, what's the best advice that someone has given you?
I would say the best advice someone has given me is to always surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. When taking a risk, look at the downside first and following up. I mean, it sounds like a simple thing, but being your word and following up is, you would think it was a easy thing for people to do, but it's really important to be your word and to follow up. And if you can't be your word, to communicate. And I think that's, and to have fun. If it's not fun, it's not worth doing.
Amazing advice from very wise people, yourself included. So, what's something that you wish that any of your mentors or anyone in your network would have shared with you that would have saved you from some headache or some heartache?
I think that I wish that I had known that there's many ways to approach a problem,
Mm.
and in that compare and despair, I wish I'd known that concept earlier in my life, and releasing the shoulds, because that's the red flag, right? That if it should feel good, it should not be a should. It doesn't mean, you run away from hard things. It's just how can you approach it in a way that feels good? And then I think that some people who are multi-passionate like myself might, make themselves wrong, or, get into judgment of themselves because they're not doing it the way that someone who had a very, oh, go to law school and then this is the next that, versus being in this place of curiosity and flow, versus feeling like, oh, I have ADD or I'm all over the place, that my way of doing things is perfect for me, and it's all in divine time. That's what I wish I'd known earlier.
Amazing. Compare and despair. I love that. That is so powerful. And releasing the shoulds, uh, so incredibly powerful. So when you are faced with that little voice, that inner critic, when the limiting belief rears its head, when that tinge of comparison or the should starts to creep in, how do you deal with it at this point in your journey?
I am a big journal writer. Usually, if I feel triggered or that level of doubt comes in, I know that it is a signal to myself that, one, if I'm surrounded by that person, that means it's there for me. It's a possibility. It's when I got my strategic attraction certification, Jan Stringer had pointed out in the book, The Game of Life and How to Play It, that, when Columbus going across the land, he didn't know he was going to reach America, but he saw twigs and he saw seaweed. And so it was a demonstration that there was a sign of land. So if someone is in your world that you're comparing yourself to, it is an opportunity for me to say, oh, well, that's available for me. And then there's an opportunity for me to clear whatever it is that, is making me feel bad, and how I can shift it and turn it around through, whether it's, what I like to call conscious complaining, or allowing myself to feel what I feel, but then reclaim my power back from that situation.
So, how do you reclaim your power back in that situation?
So I tell the truth about it.
Mm.
I either find a committed listener, or I write it out in my journal and I tell the truth. I vent and I let it out. I give myself permission to feel. I give myself permission to be human. But then I don't stay in the victim closet. Then I write, oh, thank you. I want to surrender this feeling. I want to see it in a new way. And this is how I want to feel. And so that's how I reclaim my power back from it, is that I give myself permission to allow that inner critic to have a voice. I give her a lollipop, and like it's like a virtual lollipop, sugar
Right.
free, organic, of course.
Of
And
course.
I then, surrender it. I usually write it in a journal format, but it's also just as equally effective to do it with a committed listener, a coach, a healer, a therapist. I think that people feel that if they do personal development, that if they have a negative thought, that somehow, the law of attraction is going to beat them in the head and that something bad's going to happen to them. However, there is, for me, I feel like if you have dust under the rug, a beautiful rug, you still have dust under that beautiful rug. So I like to call it soul dusting. We have to soul dust out the feelings.
Yeah.
And then from that place, you can reclaim and say how you want to feel and put your point of attraction and where you want to go. But I think it's important for my journey, I never want to proclaim I know anything, but this is just what's worked for me, that saying that this is how I want to feel after I give myself permission to be human.
I think that's so important. Give yourself permission. Give yourself permission to feel the feelings or to process them as you need to, and then to release it and surrender it without the judgment, without beating yourself up, because we're all on this journey called life.
Yes.
So that's really powerful. What are some other ways that you prioritize your self-care?
My morning ritual is everything to me. I mean, I start my day writing how I want my day to go, how I want to feel, giving gratitude. I meditate, and for me, I sometimes I don't have time to meditate a full half an hour. It could be as easy as 5 minutes, as closing my eyes. But for me, self-care and making sure that I fill my tanks so that I have extra for others and for my business and my life is top priority. But journal writing is me being able to express all the things that are going on in here and in here. It gives me a place to put it in the morning, and then I can carry on with my day.
So, has there been a time in your life where you have felt that your voice was stifled and that you were being silenced or unheard, that then led you down the path of really developing your processes for using your voice, for getting your clarity and coming home to yourself and really processing your feelings? Was there a time when you were stifled and that was the genesis?
I think it stems back to my childhood, and I think the confusion of when my parents got divorced and they were, working it out in the way that they were working it out. There was a lot of conflict, there was a lot of fighting, and being in the middle of that with not feeling like I could, that had in my world that had to be between them, and seeing them navigate and pick up the pieces to their life. So from observing that, and then also just from everyday insecurities of being a girl in the 80s, I think that I just always felt like there was more. And my mom had books like Shakti Gawain in the house and Wayne Dyer on cassette tape. And so I think that even though in those moments where I felt like I didn't have a voice or I could speak up what I needed, whether it's shared holidays, where that hadn't been worked out properly, I was definitely it. I always look back and say I wouldn't have wanted it to be any other way, because that is what put me on my Shiro's journey to go and discover how relationship works, how relationship with myself work. And I will always be a student of that because I never feel cooked or done. There's always more to grow.
Wow. So, would you say, looking back now, that navigating those childhood experiences were the most difficult obstacles that you've overcome? Or have there been others? And how did you navigate them to become who you are on the path that you are today?
Yeah, so I would say that was one big one, and then I would say another two that affected me was one being downtown when the towers got hit on 9/11. I definitely suffered post-traumatic stress disorder. And, I had already been on my path at that point, but then I had gotten knocked down, from seeing from my rooftop. Now I was 2 blocks away, and then having to do the healing work from the post-traumatic stress disorder. It, of course, brought me deeper, and realizing that, you can't control the law of attraction or be in so much control. And so I had to do a lot of deep healing work there. And then I would say, after my second daughter was born, I went through postpartum depression. And then from that place, I also had to dig deeper within myself, that there isn't a rule or tool to get yourself through something. Sometimes, like I said before, we need to feel our feelings and really do the work to heal the trauma. And I think that for me, I was like, oh, well, if I have my, 9 steps or the 7 steps to nowhere, I will be able to, get through this without having to feel those like horrible feelings that I was feeling. And I think those were moments that, definitely hit me hard, that I can recall at the moment. So,
Thank you for sharing those. Those are some really profound moments, and I think quite relatable with so many in the audience. So thank you for taking us back there and for your vulnerability. When you were processing your feelings and taking back your power and healing, what did you find to be the single most powerful tool or process or resource that really helped you to heal?
well, one, I wanted to go back and say something about the postpartum. I think that the part that was really hard for me with that is that I had, at that point had already been really far along on my spiritual journey. And the fact that I couldn't access any of my tools in that moment brought me a lot of shame and upset, because I had claimed, that I was able to do these things and to be able to surrender. I would say that it's not one single thing. It was a culmination of going to healers. I did a process called Access Consciousness, where you ask a lot of questions. And I learned through that process about, one, asking questions, but also the getting out of conclusion and out of judgment of self and judgment of others is the pathway to freedom. I had another spiritual mentor. I went on these journeys to Sedona with this woman I was guided to spend time with. Her name is Fran, and I would go on these synchronicity tours on Jeeps. But I would say not everybody has the luxury to just go to Sedona. And I would just say that for me, writing, I also did traditional therapy. There is nothing wrong with traditional therapy. And, and I think it was really interesting. When I got the postpartum, I had called my healer on the phone, and she said, I think you need to get on medication. And I was mad, because I was like, well, I want to do this with acupuncture. And I was, and then I was like, oh, this is going to be a fast way for me to get help so I could be there for my daughters. And what was interesting about that experience was that because I did that, it brought me to this moment where I was able to have a very beautiful conversation with my father, who mostly understands traditional forms versus, what I call woo forms. And that wouldn't have happened. So I think just trusting and finding people that I could trust to share my feelings with, those were some of the tools that I had accessed at that moment.
So powerful. And those are tools that I think so many people can access, right? Reaching out for help, any resource that you have, having the conversations. If you need traditional services, go the traditional route. If you need to supplement that with, you mentioned acupuncture or going to Sedona, finding your community, your tribe. You're never alone in the struggles. You're never alone in the experiences. And so reaching out and connecting to people that can help you navigate is so incredibly powerful. Now, I know that tuning in and trusting your intuition is also fundamental for you. So,
Yes.
what do you do to create space for yourself to be fully present so that you can hear your voice within?
Well, like I said, I do a lot of journaling. And then I learned through doing the Access Consciousness work, just so everybody knows, I never completely subscribe to one thing. I entertain everything and I believe nothing at the same time. I truly, it's really important to me that people always use discernment when they go explore things that people mention. And there are a lot of free resources on YouTube. YouTube's your best friend. So the question was, how do I trust my intuition? When I did the acts, I've always had this feeling, and I feel it in a feeling way. It's always just been there, but I've learned to trust it more by the tool of, does this feel light or does this feel heavy? And so for me, that's how I'm able to access it. But first, if I can't access it, I need to do those conscious complaint forms. I have to write out everything and then I listen. There's also a tool called Human Design where I learned you can take a test. It's a combination of astrology and Kabbalah and I Ching and a few other things. And I learned about myself that if I'm talking to someone else and they ask me questions, then if I hear it through my ear as a uh-huh and an uh-uh. And so that's also a way that I can access this through speaking with my husband or with a friend or with a coach or with my business partner. That those are some of the ways that I've been able to access. And I also walk in nature and meditation, of course.
I love that you just said that you listen and hear it as a uh-huh and uh-uh. That's amazing. Let's talk a little bit more about that dichotomy and about the discernment that you just referenced, because I think that is so, so important. The discernment to know, uh-huh, and and is this for me, is this heavy, is this light, the discernment to know what is your voice and what is the voice of the external, the discernment to know when you need to be still or when you need to quiet the noise of the outside world. So let's dive a little deeper into that. um, what Take us through your processes, or when you first discovered that, how that landed with you, and how you're able to discern which is what.
I would say that like I said before, I usually experience it as a feeling, and through and if I don't have someone to talk to ask me questions, I'll write it down. I'll write the question down, and then I'll experience it as a or And then if I don't get any answer, I also do muscle testing as well, which is I don't even know how to describe it at the moment, but I feel like I just get it as a light feeling, and if I feel a heavy feeling, then I ask further questions, and I'll just say, "Who does this belong to? Is this mine, or what do I need to let go of in terms of getting that clear answer?" And sometimes I'm okay with not knowing the answer. I might just not have the answer. So being okay, but usually I'll experience it when it's a yes as this joy or this or this lightness. But my process also is I sit with it. Where in the past, my intuition, I would say, "Oh, I got an intuition," and I dive. I'm a quick start, so I like to dive right in. I fall in love very easily with people, and so what I've realized through the years and through studying human design is that my process is that it's better for me to sit, because something that could seem like a bad idea, if I sit with it a little longer, might be a good idea, and something that I think is like, "Oh my God," and I jump in, might not be for my best interests. So I think that there's a lot of people out there who are authentic and care, and there's a lot of people who are great at marketing. So I think that for me, it's just really, it's like I say this to my kids all the time. I'm like, it's just very, I want you to be open, but I also want you to be discerning, because not everything is what you see. And just take a minute to really think about it, do your research, and then sit with your how you feel. So, and walking is good for me too. I get answers while walking.
That you brought up a really, really good point, and I think especially in the pandemic world that we're living in now, with all of the hustle and bustle and the never-ending to-do list, right? People now, they're working, they're homeschooling, they're navigating all of the fear and the uncertainty and the judgments and all of the things. And what a powerful reminder to stop, breathe, take your time, and sit on it for a minute. Not everything needs to operate on warp speed, even though
Yeah,
it feels that way. So thank you for that reminder
of
to
course.
to take your time.
Yeah. Yeah.
We forget that on this hamster wheel of daily routine and the chaos of all the things that happen in day-to-day life. So
Yeah, well, everything has become microwave and instant gratification, and we forget. Some of us are old enough to remember when you had to wait for film to be developed. Like 7 days, and then it became an hour, and even an hour was too long. Now we have I think I have like 20,000 pictures in my phone. So I think it's just having that patience is definitely something that I'm working on. And I just invite, everybody else to do it as well, because it's so easy, especially, I like to call them ego landmines, especially with social media and a lot of the division that's going on. It's easy to be triggered at any moment. So to just make sure to take breaks from social and to give yourself time away from your phone. I really do my best not to pick it up first thing. I usually like to just say, my thanks for that I got another day to exist, and that's a gift. And
so what is something, continuing on that vein, what's something that you have done to push yourself out of your comfort zone and to overcome the fear of judgment?
well, I wouldn't even be here on this interview today if it wasn't for my stand-up comedy experience. I remember a client came up to me and I was sharing a story with her, and she said, "Brooke, you're so funny." I go, "What do you mean? What are you talking about? I'm not funny. Only my good friends think I'm funny." She's like, "You're funny." And I just came from a graduation, and we did a stand-up comedy class in Ridgefield, Connecticut at the Ridgefield Playhouse. And I said, "That scares the living daylights out of me. I'm going to do it." So I came home and told my husband I'm signing up for the stand up comedy class. And then he signed up for it too. And I did stand up comedy in front of 250 people. And it was the most liberating experience of my entire life.
Wow, feel the fear and do it anyway, and get out there. Now, you wrote a children's book to help with this. So tell us a little bit about that.
So the book is called, I co-wrote this with my husband. We're co-creators together. So it's called The Sly Fox of the Mind. And how it came to be was my 4-year-old at the time, she came home and told me that a little girl at school told her that she wasn't pretty, and she was pretty upset. And I took her to the mirror and I said, "Who gets to say you're pretty?" And she pointed to me. I said, "No, you're the one." And at 4 years old, I did not know how I was going to explain the ego and the voices in your head that try to take you out, everything we spoke about in this interview. So I explained it to her that there's this sly fox and this good fox, and the sly fox tries to tell you things that aren't true. And we proceeded to teach her through this story. And so we turned it into a children's book. And what was very interesting is that the parents who were reading it were also getting something out of it in terms of, all day long we hear the voices in our head or somebody out there. You can give your power away to them when, that feeling of feeling light versus feeling heavy that we spoke about, that's all in this children's book that we co-wrote together.
So powerful. You've done so many things. You continue to do so many things. You have incredible passion. What drives you?
What drives me is connecting people to the divine and to others and seeing people fulfill on their dreams and to activate the love inside other people and myself. And I always shake my head and I look around at the world and I say, how are we still not getting along? And so for me, my husband and I have a motto, and my business partner, independently with her husband, has the same motto, and it's called do good, have fun. And so for me, that is what drives me, is fun, creativity, inspiration, inspiring others and being inspired and collaborating. That's it. I want to raise the consciousness of the planet, and I want to bring more joy to the planet and to my family and to those who I connect with. That's what drives me.
So let's imagine that you have come to the end of your life best lived, a life where every single day you have lived your fullest purpose, you've lived your passion, you've been able to stay in that driver's seat. What do you want to be remembered for? What's your legacy?
My legacy is that I would say my friend Mark Anthony Bates says this: do something good for somebody without getting caught. And to me, I would love at the end of my life to see a ripple effect of that, where I don't even need to know how I've impacted people. I don't need to be famous. I don't need to have 100 million followers. That everything matters and nothing matters. That one of my best friends, she passed away 2 years ago. And, she didn't get the husband and she didn't have the business and she knew everything. She knew Marie Kondo before Oprah knew Marie Kondo. And we were sitting in hospice and I saw how she made a difference in people's lives. Like, she would intuitively feel that she needed to send someone a book. And then that person told me, she saved my marriage by sending me that book. And to me, like, all the bells and whistles of best-selling author and things like that, that's great. But that's not what drives me. At the end of my life, I want to know that I made a difference. And even if it's just like those small ripple effects, that's good. And I don't even have to know that it happened, but I that would make me feel super satisfied. And I feel super satisfied at the moment right now. So that's my answer.
Amazing. So profound. That was really, really beautiful. And we should all leave such a legacy. We should all leave such a legacy.
Well, you're doing it. You're doing it.
Amazing. So as we wrap up here today, are there any parting words of wisdom or any final thoughts that you want to share with the audience?
Well, since I'm on the path of, remembering those who've passed, I would say breathe. I would say give. And I would say ask every day, what is my most inspired action? And take time to listen to it.
Ask every day, what is my most inspired action? And then take time to listen to it.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, how can people find out more about your work and connect with you?
People can go to highvibecollaboration.com and reach me there, or they can find me on LinkedIn at Brooke Connect.
Amazing. Everyone run and connect with Brooke. She is incredible. Brooke, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pure joy. Thank you.
Till next time.